Draven Cole's ship was dying. Smoke filled the cockpit. Warning lights flashed red. The jungle planet below spun fast on his screen. "Come on, hold together," he shouted, but the engine gave one last cough, and the ship crashed through thick clouds, hit the ground hard, and slid into the forest with a terrible roar. Everything went dark. Hours later, he opened his eyes to soft blue light. A face looked down at him. Not human. The girl had smooth gray skin with a soft glow, like silver, dust under the stars. Her long black hair was braided with beads. Her eyes, bright violet, stared into his. "You're alive," she said softly. "You're lucky." Draven tried to sit up, but pain stabbed through his side. Who are you?" "I am Elia. You fell from the sky." He looked around. They were inside a small shelter made of wood and glowing vines. Outside, strange birds called through the trees. "Where am I?" "Valor Prime," she said. "You are in the forest of my people. But you must stay inside. The moons will rise soon." Draven frowned. "Moons?" She stood and pulled down a thick black curtain over the shelter entrance. "Twin moons. When they shine, I cannot be seen. I must not be touched by their light." "Why?" Elia didn't answer. She just tightened the curtain and said, "Promise me. Do not open this until morning." Draven woke later, sweating. The shelter was hot, very hot. He looked around. Elia was asleep in the corner, covered in a dark cloak. The air felt thick. He needed to breathe. He walked to the curtain and pulled it back just a little. Outside, the jungle was bathed in silver-blue moonlight. 2 giant moons hovered in the sky, lighting everything with soft, beautiful glow. "It's just light," he whispered. "What's the big deal?" He stepped outside, just for a second. The air cooled his skin, but he didn't know Elia had followed him. Moonlight touched her face. She gasped and fell to her knees. Draven turned around, shocked. "Elia!" She gritted her teeth, trying to pull her cloak over her head. But the light was already on her skin. Steam rose from her arms. "No, get back, don't look at me." But he ran to her. "What's happening? Are you burning?" She screamed, not in pain but in panic. Her skin was glowing now, bright like fire under the skin. Her body trembled. "I told you not to open the curtain. I didn't know." She fell to the ground, shaking. Draven grabbed her and pulled her back inside. He covered her with the cloak, then dropped the curtain shut. Inside the shelter, her body still glowed faintly under the fabric. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Elia's voice was weak. "It's not your fault, but now you've seen." For a long time, there was only silence. Then she spoke again. "My body changes under the moons. It heats up. The energy burns inside me. That's why I stay hidden. My people, they fear what happens to me." Draven sat beside her. "Are you cursed?" She gave a soft, bitter laugh. "They say that, but no one knows. I was born this way. My sister says I am dangerous. You don't look dangerous. You haven't seen what happens when the light stays too long." She pulled her hand out from under the cloak. Even now, the tips of her fingers glowed faintly red. He reached out and touched her hand. It was warm, very warm, but not painful. "Does it hurt?" he asked. Elia shook her head. "Only if I fight it." Draven looked at the curtain. The moon still glowed outside, waiting. "I shouldn't have opened it," he said. She didn't reply, but her hand stayed in his. Outside, the moons moved slowly across the sky, unaware of the girl hiding from them, and the human who had exposed her without knowing what he'd done. But something had changed now. Elia had been seen, and Draven had touched, what no one else dared. Draven woke to the sound of soft humming. The sun had risen. The moons were gone. The light inside the small jungle shelter was dim but calm. Elia sat in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees. Her cloak still covered most of her body, but her face was uncovered now, pale gray with a touch of pink on her cheeks. Her eyes, though, were distant. "You're awake," she said without looking. Draven sat up carefully. His side still hurt from the crash, but not as much as last night. He remembered the heat, the light, the way her body had glowed. "Elia, I didn't mean to." She raised a hand. "You didn't know, but now you do. That changes everything." Draven frowned. "Changes what?" She turned to him slowly. "You've seen what I become under the twin moons. That's forbidden." "Why? What's the danger?" She looked away. "The danger is me." They sat in silence for a while. Draven could hear the distant jungle sounds, birds calling, branches shifting, rivers flowing. Finally, she spoke again. "My people, the Valari, once lived under the stars freely. But centuries ago, something changed. The moons began to affect us. Some say it's a curse, others say it's evolution, but under the twin moons, we change." Draven leaned in. "How?" She hesitated, then pulled back her cloak slightly. Her forearm was bare now, but not normal. Soft, glowing lines ran under her skin, like veins of liquid fire. "When the moons shine on us, our bodies absorb energy," she said. "Most Valari can control it. I cannot." Draven stared. "That's not a curse, that's power." She laughed softly, bitterly. "Tell that to my people." She stood and moved to a small vine-covered shelf. She poured a cup of root water and handed it to Draven. "My sister is the leader of our tribe. She has always protected me, but she fears me too. She says the energy inside me could destroy everything. So I stay hidden. I live in shadows. I never walk beneath the moons." Draven sipped the water. It was cool and sweet. He looked at her carefully. "What happens if you do?" Elia closed her eyes. "I burn, I shine, I lose control. But you didn't hurt me." "I held back," she said. "Barely." Draven looked at his hands. They had touched her skin. Warm, yes, but not deadly. He looked at her again. "Maybe you don't need to fear the light." She opened her eyes. "You don't understand, human. The last time I was caught in full moonlight, a tree exploded. I burned the roots, birds died in the sky." She paused. "I was 12. Draven stood and stepped toward her. He looked into her eyes. "I'm not afraid of you," he said. "You should be. But I'm not." She stared at him. For the first time, there was a flicker of something soft in her face. Confusion or hope. Suddenly a sound echoed outside, a high whistle followed by 3 deep tones. Elia's eyes widened. "They're coming." Draven grabbed his bag. "Who?" "My tribe," she said quickly. "Scouts. They come to check on me every few days." She turned to him, her voice sharp. "You have to hide." "Why?" She pulled him toward the back of the shelter. "Because if they find a human here, one who saw my light, they'll call it a breach." "A breach of what?" "Valari law." They reached a trapdoor beneath a loose panel. She opened it fast and pointed. "Down. Now." Draven hesitated. "Elia, go." He slid down into darkness just as the curtain pulled open. 3 tall Valari stepped inside. Each wore bone armor and carried a long staff tipped with crystal blades. The tallest, one dark-skinned with glowing silver tattoos, stepped forward. "Elia," he said. "Are you well?" She bowed her head. "Yes, Scout Ishan. We saw a flare in the forest last night. Did anything happen?" Elia paused, then shook her head. "No, just the moons. I stayed inside." The scout narrowed his eyes, then nodded. "Good. Remember, Sister of the Flame, your light must not escape. The tribe depends on it." He turned and walked out, followed by the others. After a moment, Elia opened the trapdoor. Draven climbed out, wiping dirt from his jacket. "Nice guys," he muttered. Elia said nothing, but her hands were shaking. Draven placed a hand on her shoulder. How long can you keep hiding like this? She didn't answer, but in her silence, something had changed. A question had begun. Maybe she was tired of hiding. Maybe she didn't want to fear her own body anymore, and maybe, just maybe, this strange human was the first spark of something new. The jungle was alive, not just with animals, but with whispers, heat, and secrets hiding in the trees. Elia moved quickly through the thick leaves, her cloak drawn tight, her eyes scanning the sky. Draven followed close behind, sweat dripping from his neck. Are you sure this is the way? Yes, she replied. The old path leads to the crystal pools. If I can find one of the moon-blocking stones, maybe I can control the heat inside me. Draven grunted. Right. Control the heat before it controls you. She didn't smile, because it wasn't a joke. They stopped at a narrow river, the water glowing faintly blue. Elia knelt, touched the surface, and whispered, The energy here is stronger. The moons have touched this water before. Draven looked up. The sun was still high, but the shadows were growing longer. How much time until moonrise? Elia stood. 3 hours. Maybe less. Draven sighed. Then we better move. But as they stepped across the river, something stirred. Behind them a tree branch cracked. Elia turned sharply, her eyes narrowed. We're not alone. They moved deeper into the jungle. Birds flew from the trees. The air got warmer. Elia's breathing grew heavier. Draven noticed her fingers glowing slightly. Barely. But it was there. Elia, are you okay? I can feel it, she whispered. Something is watching us. Something that follows my heat. Draven pulled his small scanner from his belt. The screen flickered, showing faint life signs all around. And one, large, moving fast behind them. Elia, he said, run. They sprinted through the brush. Twisting roots and thick vines pulled at their feet. Suddenly, a deep growl echoed. Behind them, low, guttural, alien. A creature burst through the trees. It was like a jaguar made of mist and fire. Its body shimmered with heat, eyes glowing red. A moon beast, Elia shouted. It's drawn to energy. The beast lunged. Elia pushed Draven aside and turned, her hand raised. For a second, her whole arm lit up with heat, white fire from within. She screamed, and the fire burst out, striking the creature. In the face it roared and staggered back but didn't die. It circled them again. Draven picked up a sharp rock and stood in front of Elia. Stay back. She looked up. What are you doing? Buying you time. Light it up again. Elia closed her eyes, her hands glowed but flickered. No good, she gasped. The fire, it's unstable. The beast leapt again. This time Draven threw the rock, hitting it square in the eye. It roared. But then something else happened. Elia stood, her body glowing brighter now, her breath slow and steady. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just raised her hands and let the fire come. A soft, blue flame, clean and controlled, grew around her palms. Then she thrust it forward. The fire didn't explode. It sang. It wrapped around the beast like a ribbon of light, not burning, but forcing it backward. The moon beast blinked once, then vanished into smoke. Draven stared, stunned. Elia collapsed to her knees, shaking. He ran to her. You did it, she nodded weakly. I didn't fight the flame this time, I guided it. He held her hands. They were warm, but not scorching. You're not a danger, he whispered. You're a light. You just needed someone to see it. Elia looked into his eyes. You're the first who ever has. That night they reached the crystal pool. Moon-blocking stones shimmered under the surface, black as space, cold as ice. Elia picked one up. Her fingers stopped glowing. Draven smiled. Looks like we found your balance. She held the stone close. No, you found it with me. They sat by the pool as the twin moons rose. Elia didn't hide this time. She sat in the light, holding the crystal in one hand, and Draven's in the other. Far away, hidden scouts from her tribe watched in silence. One turned and whispered, "She has awakened." The other replied, "And the human walks beside her." The sky changed too fast. One moment it was quiet. The next, wind howled through the jungle trees like angry spirits. Elia stood by the crystal pool, her hair whipping in the wind. Draven looked up and saw dark clouds racing across the sky. He didn't like it. "Elia, we need to find cover." She nodded, clutching the moon-blocking crystal tightly in her hand. But before they could move, lightning cracked the sky, and the crystal in her hand shattered. Elia gasped as black pieces scattered across the wet stones. Draven reached for her. "Grab another!" But the wind blew stronger. The pool's surface churned. The crystals under the water sank out of sight. The clouds shifted again, and suddenly the twin moons broke through and the light touched her. "Elia, move!" Too late. Her legs froze. Her hands trembled. Light spilled across her skin. Soft, at first, then growing brighter, hotter. She looked at Draven. "I can't stop it this time." "Then don't," he shouted. "Breathe. Guide it." Like before, she fell to her knees. Flames began to flicker around her body. Not orange or red, but blue-white, silent and slow like stars waking up. Her eyes snapped open, glowing now, pure light. And yet, she didn't scream. She stood, slowly, gracefully. Power danced under her skin, but her voice was calm. "I don't feel fear," she whispered. "Not this time." Draven took a step forward. "You're in control." Her skin shimmered like crystal. Every breath she took gave off small ripples of heat. Not painful, but warm, alive. "I feel..." She looked at her hands. "I feel whole." Lightning flashed again. From the trees, Valari scouts appeared. Captain Tana, Elia's older sister, stepped forward. Her silver armor glowed faintly. "Elia," she called out, shocked. "What have you done?" Elia turned, eyes glowing like the moons above. "I'm not hiding anymore." Tana stepped back. "You are unstable, dangerous." "No," Elia said. "I was afraid. You made me afraid of myself." She pointed to Draven. "But he showed me I could be more." Tana raised her spear. "Then you choose exile. You've broken the law." Draven stepped between them. "You call this a crime?" he shouted. "She's not out of control. She's evolved. You're just afraid she's stronger than your laws." Tana's eyes narrowed. "Silence, human." Elia walked forward. The ground under her feet steamed, but the grass didn't burn. The flames listened to her now. She looked at her sister. "I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you, I am Valari Flameborn, and I am done hiding." The scouts froze. They had never seen anyone shine in moonlight without turning into a danger. But Elia wasn't a danger. She was beauty, balance, power. Tana's arm lowered, just a little. Her voice shook. "What do you want?" Elia reached for Draven's hand, to choose my own path. The storm passed, clouds drifted away, and under the full gaze of both moons, Elia stood with fire inside her, and love beside her. No longer cursed, no longer alone. Later that night, Elia and Draven returned to their small shelter. The broken crystal lay on the table. She touched it gently. "It helped me once," she said, "but it's not the crystal anymore." Draven looked at her. "What is it then?" "You," she said softly. "You're my anchor now." He smiled. "You're my fire." Outside, the moons watched in silence. And this time, so did the stars. The morning after the storm was quiet, too quiet. Elia stood barefoot by the riverbank. The mist rose around her ankles like soft threads of memory. Draven sat nearby, repairing a cracked water bottle with metal tape and half his focus. He was watching her. Her movements were different now. Not afraid, not hiding. She moved like someone who had finally accepted who she was, and was still unsure what to do with it. "Elia," Draven said softly, "there's something you're not telling me." She turned to him slowly. "I told you everything." "No," he said, standing. "You told me about the moons, the power, the fear, but not the origin. Not why you, out of all the Valari, burned so brightly." Elia didn't respond right away. She looked at her hands. The faint glow still danced under her skin, even in daylight. Then she nodded. "Come with me." She led him deep into the jungle, past the crystal pools, through hanging vines and thick roots. Finally, they stopped before a hidden cave sealed by black stone. "This place is forbidden to outsiders," she said. "Even most Valari don't know it exists. So why bring me here?" Elia placed her palm against the stone. It glowed, and the door opened. "Because you're not just an outsider anymore." Inside the cave, ancient murals lined the walls, carved in glowing lines. They showed Valari warriors with flames in their hands, standing under twin moons. Some fought, some healed, some burned. "These were the Flameborn," Elia explained. "Thousands of years ago, our people embraced the light. They used its power to protect, to grow, to feel." Draven looked closer. "Then what happened?" Elia's face darkened. "Jealousy, fear. Some among the Valari believed the Flameborn would become gods. So they sealed the bloodline, hid it, rewrote history to say the moons brought madness, not strength." Draven stared. "And you?" Elia nodded. "I was born with the Flameborn blood. My sister knew. She told the tribe I was sick to protect me. But the truth was always in me." They walked to the center of the cave. A tall mirror stood there, old, cracked, but still shining faintly. Elia stepped in front of it. Moonlight, filtered through a crack above, touched her face. And in the mirror, she didn't see a cursed girl. She saw herself. Strong. Awake. Burning. From within. "I am the first Flameborn in 10 generations," she whispered. "And now the fire is waking." Draven stepped beside her. "Then let it burn," he said. "With purpose." Elia turned to him. Tears glistened at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but release. "You're not afraid?" Draven reached out and touched her cheek. "I've seen war, I've seen machines kill, I've seen stars die, but what I see in you is life." They left the cave hours later, but something had changed. Elia no longer walked like someone carrying a curse. She walked like someone carrying history. That night, Captain Taina arrived. She stood at the edge of the shelter, her expression unreadable. "I should punish you," she said. "You broke law. You opened a sacred cave. You walk in the light." Elia stood tall. "I know. But I won't punish you," Taina said quietly. "Because I finally see you. Not as a danger, but as the future." She stepped forward, handing Elia a flame-shaped pendant. "It was our mother's. She was the last known carrier. She hid it, like I hid the truth." Elia took it with shaking hands. "You knew." Taina nodded. "And I feared it. Until now." Later, Elia stood with Draven on a cliff, pendant around her neck, watching the twin moons rise. The heat came again. But now she smiled. "I'm not just Valari," she whispered. "I'm Flameborn." "And you're not alone," Draven replied, his hand finding hers. The fire came in the night, not from Elia but from the jungle itself. Flames rose in the distance. Trees cracked. Birds fled. Red smoke filled the air. Draven shot up from his sleep, coughing. He grabbed his pack and turned to Elia. She was already awake, eyes glowing faintly, body tense. "They're here," she said. "Who?" "The Shadow. Guard," she whispered. "A secret order sworn to destroy the Flameborn before we rise again." They ran from the camp, deeper into the forest. Draven's scanner blinked wildly. 5 life forms closing in fast. "Elia," he said between breaths. "You said your tribe accepted you." "Not all of them," she replied. "The elders voted to wait. But the Shadow Guard never waits." Suddenly, a spear made of black crystal flew past Draven's head. It struck a tree and exploded into ash. "They're using deadlight weapons," Elia said. "They want to erase me." "Over my dead body," Draven growled. They dove into a deep cave under a fallen cliff. The entrance was hidden by vines and thick roots. Inside, they caught their breath. For a moment, it was just the sound of their breathing and the quiet hum of the fire inside Elia. Her glow was stronger now. Her skin lit softly, like gold under silver light. Draven leaned against the wall, panting. "You okay?" She looked at him, voice low. "No, but I will be." He moved closer. "You could still run," he said. "You don't have to fight them." She shook her head. "Running is what I've done all my life, but now, if I run, they'll chase the next girl like me. I can't hide forever." Her fingers touched the flame pendant around her neck. "They fear me because I could start something new." Draven looked at her, serious. "Then start it." She turned to him fully now. The glow in her eyes met his steady gaze. "You've stayed with me through fire, through danger, through fear." He smiled slightly. "Still here." She stepped closer. "Why?" Draven didn't answer right away. Then he said simply, "Because when I look at you, I don't see danger. I see destiny. And maybe I want to be part of it." They leaned into each other, not as alien and human, but as 2 souls burning the same fire. Outside, the jungle quieted for a second. Then the Shadow Guard found the trail. Inside the cave, Elia stood straighter. Her hands were glowing now, bright blue fire dancing between her palms. But her expression was calm. She looked at Draven. "Will you fight with me?" He lifted a long metal rod from his gear bag, made from part of his broken ship. "I was hoping you'd ask." When the Shadow Guard burst into the cave, they didn't find a girl cowering. They found a warrior standing in moonlight. The first guard raised his weapon, and Elia struck first. The fire didn't explode like before. It curved like a blade, controlled and precise. She knocked one guard down, flames wrapping around his armor but not burning flesh, only stealing the darkness from his soul. Another aimed for Draven, who ducked, rolled, and smashed his rod into the attacker's leg. The fight was fierce. Fast. But for the first time, Elia was not alone. After the final blast, the last guard fell, unconscious, not dead. Elia stood over them, chest rising and falling. Her flame faded slowly, softly. Draven limped over to her. That was kind of beautiful. She looked at him with fire in her eyes and a soft smile. "Let's call it balance." The 2 stood at the cave mouth watching the stars above. "I don't want to hide anymore," she said. "I want to burn, not to destroy, but to light the way." Draven nodded. "Then let's show them what the flame can really do." The doors of the high circle creaked open. Inside, the stone chamber glowed with soft blue light. Elders of the Valari sat in a wide circle, their faces carved with deep lines, their robes lined with crystal dust. In the center was an empty platform, meant only for the most sacred, and now Elia stepped into that sacred space. But she was not alone. By her side walked a human, Draven. Every eye turned. Every breath held. Never in Valari history had a Flameborn stood here without chains, and never with a human hand in hers. Captain Tana stood behind the circle, expression unreadable. But when her eyes met Elia's, she gave a slow, proud nod. Elia stepped forward and spoke, her voice steady, clear. "You told me the Flameborn must stay hidden, that our light would burn the world. You were wrong." She opened her hands. Blue flame bloomed, not with violence, but warmth. It danced above her palms like stars, glowing gently, not scorching. The moons don't curse us, they call us. The flame inside me isn't madness, it's memory of who we were and who we could be again. One elder stood, Elder Rome, oldest among them. Your power is real, he said, but power frightens people. I know, Elia said. I lived in fear my whole life. She looked around at them all. But fear is not safety. It's a cage. Draven stepped forward now. He didn't bow. He simply spoke. You fear her flame, but I walked with it. I stood beside her when the moons touched her skin, and I am still standing. He held out his arm. A faint mark, like a burn, glowed on his skin, shaped like her flame. She didn't burn me. She changed me. Not into something dangerous, but into something more. Gasps echoed across the chamber. A human marked by the flame. It had never happened. Ever. Elder Rome stepped down slowly. He looked into Elia's eyes. Then what do you ask, Flameborn? Elia looked to the circle, her voice unwavering. End the silence, end the fear. Let the Flameborn rise again. And let us walk not as outcasts, but as guides. She turned to Draven. And let the world see that even fire can love. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, one by one, the elders stood. Not all, but enough, and raised their hands in the old gesture of agreement. Taina stepped forward, removed her captain's badge, and placed it on Elia's arm. You are not just my sister, she whispered. You are now our future. Later that night, Elia and Draven stood on the tallest cliff of Valar Prime. Below, fire danced not in fear, but in celebration. Valari children wore glowing paint shaped like stars. Elders walked beside humans, and above them, the twin moons rose, full and silver. Elia stepped into the light. She didn't hide. She raised her arms, and her fire glowed so bright it touched the clouds. Draven turned to her, smiling. Well, he said, you were afraid of the moons once. She laughed softly, glowing brighter with every breath. I still feel them, she said, but now they feel me too. He took her hand, and the fire didn't burn. It danced between them, a bond, a beginning, a flame that would never fade.